Hi guys, I wanted to do a video about what doctors don't tell you. So, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not any of those things. I've got my laptop here, by the way, that's why I'm looking down, because I've written them down. So what doctors don't tell you when they hand out an antidepressant, a benzodiazepine, or an antipsychotic, a psych medication. Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, but at the same time, I have gone through this very terrifying and layered experience and seen how many people are suffering from this harm from medication, symptoms, side effects, adverse reactions, and withdrawal, protracted withdrawal, all the things, and how doctors just deny it. They flat out deny it, as well as psychiatrists. You also get a lot of specialists, obviously, because when you're in it, you're like reaching to anyone, like, can you help me? Can you help me? Anyone help me with this? Please make it stop. It's very easy to then listen to a specialist who, or an alternative way of healing, and be like, this is the way, because you just want it to end. And at the moment, to be honest, because doctors and the current medical field don't recognize this and they don't accept it or acknowledge it, that so many people are in the kind of limbo. No one really knows. No one actually knows how to cure withdrawal. Like if there was something that you could just take whilst you're in withdrawal and for it to end. Wouldn't that be great? At the moment, it's time. It's allowing the nervous system to completely settle back into homeostasis and do that in a way where you're avoiding setbacks, like in my last video. So I'm just going to read out a few things that I definitely didn't know before I walked into a doctor's office. I just didn't know about medication. Who does? Least of all the doctors giving it out presently. So, things doctors don't tell you when they hand out an antidepressant. Fact. They come with hundreds of short-term and long-term side effects. Like, when I was at my worst and I'd been given all this medication, one on top of the other, obviously the first medication, the lorazepam, causing the harm, all the symptoms, then medicated with more medication, diagnosed with every single mental health issue under the sun, when I was absolutely fine and just went in for tinnitus. I had, I'm going to say it could have been, hundreds, maybe, I mean, it felt like thousands of very bizarre sensations and side effects going on. Like my thoughts were completely, I wasn't myself anymore. I mean, it went from mild version of that to like full, this feeling that time was never ending, this feeling that the gravitational pull of the earth was crushing me. My bones were breaking. I felt like I was being burnt alive, the sensation of burning. Pain, severe pain, the feeling that my skull was being crushed, the feelings that my insides were being crushed and pulled out. I mean, just the wildest stuff of nightmares. And that was like peak worst place. And my thoughts, I didn't even have normal thoughts. I still had the thought of like, I want to survive, I want to get better, but I couldn't string a sentence together. I couldn't have a normal conversation. The sensations, like my skin didn't feel normal, like how I'm touching my hand now, like, and I can feel my hand touching my hand. That would not be normal. In fact, I wouldn't be able to feel the sensation of me touching like that. It wouldn't feel normal. Everything would feel very alien. Like my eyesight, I had light sensitivity was so intense. It looked like everything just wasn't real. Like I was looking around and I was in some sort of weird movie, like some sort of high contrast, very bright surroundings. That's gone over time. My eyesight's still strange. Like I don't know whether people can relate with when your eyesight all of a sudden goes like high contrast, like there's kind of something happens in your nervous system, or and your eyes, maybe it's like when they're adjusting to the different light from like light to dark and they can go a bit funny for a minute. That it's like that, but like 10 times polarized, like bigger. Anyway, tinnitus, obviously big one. Weird sensations in my ears. My tinnitus just went like my head felt like it was going to explode, and that would kind of come and go over time. Sounds, it felt like a truck going by was like a Concorde about to crush me and kill me. It was just the weirdest stuff. Like my ears could pick up on really, really, really details of things going by that I couldn't naturally hear. It was almost like this kind of hypersensitized way of hearing. Like I could hear every single sound in like a car that was braking. It was just wild. I mean, and that's just the half of it. I had things where I felt like the world was moving, and it genuinely felt like the ground and the whole earth was moving. And I would get like, it was the weirdest thing all the time. And I had this like rocking sensation for a while, which was just, I mean, I would stand and I would be like this and I was rocking. It was absolutely terrifying. Whew. Insomnia, obviously that's just there, but mine was particularly bad because I didn't have a taper off the lorazepam, but also that I was then given more medication after, so the kindling effect, and that, I mean, I just felt my brain, it was on fire. And this mechanism when you go to sleep, so like, you know, you're in your bed and you're like, and you know that moment where you're like drifting off, or that moment where you're like sat up in a coach and you go, oh, and you're asleep, or like you're like, you know, you've gone. That moment of falling to sleep when you're like, that just couldn't happen. That just disappeared. The ability to be able to do that was gone. I was just awake, very, very awake. You know, I would close my eyes and I would try my hardest. I'd be like, please, 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 can I sleep? Oh, I'm so tired. But at no point did my brain go from awake to asleep. And that's why that went on for a good while. And I think because of all the polydrugging, my brain was just having absolutely no rest, really overdrive sensation in the nervous system, that I had started having psychosis and the other medication being piled on. Anyway, so there are hundreds of side effects that can come with these things. The more kind of confusing everyday ones, I would say, for people that don't go all the way, I mean, that's extreme, and that was like, you know, but the more sort of mild is rebound anxiety. So you can get, I call it chemical anxiety, because it's actually not my anxiety. It's what the drug has done to my nervous system that's causing this dysregulation. It's causing me to have these waves of anxiety. And it can be very different for everyone, from mild to severe, but I had it from mild to like, oh, I'm feeling really anxious, or this kind of turning feeling in my stomach, maybe even nausea, to, oh my God, this is like pulling through my body and it feels so overwhelming, this surge of absolute terror. Like, and that brings me on to this feeling of dissociation, derealization, where you just kind of come out of your body almost. And I felt like I wasn't in my body. Brain zaps, like the brain, like weird stuff going on my brain, sensations, you know, very worrying when you're going through this and you're like, oh my God, my brain is broken. Like the kinds of sensations you can get are enough. One, the symptom is enough to make you think that you are dying, you know, like it's so scary. Depression, so like dark thoughts, again, can go from mild to severe. So you could have like a rebound of these mild symptoms when you come off your medication, and you can think that it's you because it's so similar to maybe what you went in for. You know what I mean? Like people go in for anxiety, go in for depression, whereas actually it's part of withdrawal. If you don't taper, you know, some people need to taper really slow, or we're all different. But again, if we're not doing that sensible taper, or we're not aware of of kind of expecting it, like if the doctor said, when you come off your medication, you might experience this kind of rebound anxiety and depression, we need to let that settle, rather than people being told that it's their mental health condition and then they need to go back on the medication. Sorry, I'm talking really fast, but there's just like so much, isn't there? Yeah. And obviously that could be really confusing. For a long time, when the benzo stuff started to happen to me whilst I was on the benzo, I started having tolerance and this kind of interdose withdrawal situation. And I was just like, I'm losing my mind. I've lost my mind. Like, I would take it, and then a few hours later, I'd be hit with the most crippling anxiety because it was, wearing off. Or I'd wake up early in the morning with this just huge surge of terror. And now I know that it's this cortisol surge in the morning that people get, often with this medication harm, where you'll wake up in like a fit of pique, There's just so many side effects. The jolting at night, if you take your medication at night and you're going to sleep and you can sort of jolt, and that could be quite scary. And sometimes it actually feels like my heart's going to stop. Heart palpitations, fatigue, this heavy feeling in your body, muscle aches, joint aches. That really happened with getiapine for me. Weird kind of like flicks and flacks of the body, like my body would just sort of go like that occasionally, which was kind of scary. My God, there's just endless, but I just wanted to list loads of those. There's loads more. I mean, I don't even know how to explain a lot of them because they're not normal human sensations. And I know people will know what I'm talking about there. It took, from the reinstatement that I had with the lorazepam that was successful, it took a good 2 years for me to feel like a normal human without some just weird feeling in my body where I'm like, oh, I don't feel human. I don't have, it could even be this tight feeling in my nervous system where I feel really like, almost just like, oh, like so tight. Or this kind of sort of agitation, inner agitation, this mild feeling of akathisia there. And actually, as I'm tapering my mirtazapine at the moment, I've noticed I'm now down to 9.5, and I'm aware that these smaller doses, I need to be more careful. But the last cut, I noticed more. And for me, it comes at about 10 days, really. 4 days to 10 days from my cut of the mirtazapine where I can feel things. This is the 10-day mark, and I am feeling weird in my body. Like, I've got those feelings, and yeah, it can be incredibly triggering if you've already been through withdrawal, but I hold on to faith they will pass, and I just make sure that I just don't do big stuff. I just take things very, very easy. No stimulants, caffeine, sugar, exercise, all those things when I'm feeling like this. Okay, number 2. Things doctors don't tell you when they hand out an antidepressant, benzodiazepine, or antipsychotic. They cause short-term and long-term health issues. So aside from the symptoms, something I've noticed is that people can actually have health issues. It could be maybe problems with your heart, your liver, your bladder, sort of like fibromyalgia. I cannot pronounce that. Fibromyalgia. You know what I mean. POTS-like symptoms, these kind of almost like Lyme's disease symptoms, very nervous system related. And people often think they've got Lyme's disease or that they've got fibromyalgia or POTS, or I don't know what all the other ones are called, but there's loads. And you can start to think that you've got these things. And it's so easy because these symptoms are so severe. And you're like, well, it can't be the medication. But when you're tapering, harmed, and going through all of this, I mean, I'm going to say that it's probably the medication. Obviously, we're all different. We are all different. And there are health conditions that are very separate to this. But what I'm trying to say is that this can really mimic a lot of health conditions, and it can give you the strangest things. Even somebody who's been taking an antidepressant for, let's say, 20 years, and they start getting a lot of health conditions and health problems. It could be problems with your digestion. Or I think it was Mark Horowitz who had something where he like passed out, and they thought that he had narcolepsy. He just started passing out. And that actually was to do with the medication he was taking. A lady who I spoke to recently had digestive issues, and it was really bad. And she'd been on her antidepressants for 6 years, and no one pointed out that actually, you've been on this for 6 years, actually. And actually it was the antidepressant that was causing that. So yeah, it can also be these kind of, well, I say milder health issues. They're not mild when they happen, but in comparison to the other side effects you can get. Things doctors don't tell you when they hand out an antidepressant, antipsychotic, or benzodiazepine. They cause extreme weight gain or weight loss. It depends. In the benzo withdrawal, I mean, I went down to, I'm going to say 5 stone. It must have been around the 5-6 stone mark where I was just absolutely emaciated. I was so thin that, I was very, very close to passing away. My organs, the doctors were like, her organs are going to fail. So I was there. I can't remember the exact weight because I was in that state and, but I was very, very little. Obviously that can happen, but more so, I suppose, well, that's a severe case, guys. It doesn't have to be you. And I'm still here. But yeah, that doesn't have to be you. But also I was aware in the benzo withdrawal that I was losing a lot of muscle mass, and it did something to my body where I just kind of lost like my muscles or my muscle. It was really peculiar. Then obviously I was put on mirtazapine and quetiapine. Both are notorious for weight gain. And that was, they made me really puffy, very water retention, swollen arms, swollen legs, swollen hands, unnatural hunger, this feeling that I really need to eat all the time. Oh my God. That's really bad. I've still got that on the mirtazapine at the moment. I'll take it at night, and then I wake up about an hour later and I just want anything that has butter, sugar, bread, anything really, really like it, it's almost like being pregnant and having a craving, and it's so intense that you just need that thing. That is what I experienced with mirtazapine, the mirtazapine monster. And what I have realized, I come from a family who are very, very slender. Like my sister's like a size 6. She's tiny, and we've got these little wrists and, little people. My dad's legs, I call them sparrow legs because they're so little. And my mum's very, very petite as well. So we've got those genes, little bones. And so I had that already, but I do have to watch my weight still on this mirtazapine, and it has 100% affected like a lot. The quetiapine at one stage, when I was on the 400 milligram, I was just, I could have been way, way bigger. It's just, we all have different metabolisms, but wow, I'm surprised. I did see a lot of people on the psychiatric units. This one woman, she got put on some antipsychotics, and after 2 weeks of her being there, she had literally quadrupled in size. It was that quick, the weight gain sometimes, and on mirtazapine as well. Yeah. And, it's very triggering because weight gain for anyone, it doesn't make us feel good. Health, fitness, exercise is the key, one of the main keys to mental health. And so it's really ironic how they put people on these things. I suppose I can get if somebody's like anorexic, emaciated, and they're going to, they really need to put the weight on. They really need to. It's a crisis situation. They need to put that weight on. But again, I feel like it's also not healthy because in a crisis, okay, to save somebody's life, but it's also not healthy for that person with the eating disorder to have this like hunger, this unnatural hunger. And also the weight that you put on these drugs isn't nice weight. It's very like cellulite-y, like it's chunky. It's horrible. Like I can't get any tone. I used to be really into my fitness. I've spoken about this before, but I can't tone anything. It won't tone. Like the muscle mass has changed, and I've got this kind of cellulite fatty layer over everything. And if I eat like a carbs, I'll just balloon. My stomach is so bloated, and I'll just have this cellulite layer of just bloat. I could go on about that for a very long time, but it's just, I loved my fitness before. I loved it. And I was actually at peak fitness before this. And that has been a really hard journey personally for me. I know that I'm not massive. People can get really big. And I speak to people who are really, one girl I know who I became close with, she's just so lovely. And I think she's put on like 4 or 5 stone for her natural weight. And it's just, she doesn't want to go out the house. She doesn't want to leave the house. And that's on venlafaxine. I'm so sorry. I'm dyslexic. And so that's an antidepressant. What things doctors don't tell you when they hand out a psych med? Coming off can take years and often needs a long taper to safely come off. So 100%. Not for everyone, years, that's a scary thing to say, but especially if you've been on it for a long time, it's going to take a while. And to start your taper with, a 10% cut and see how it feels, gauge how your body's going to react, and then go from there. A doctor will just say to you, cut it in half again, or take a quarter off, and then do the other quarter, then do the other quarter. Then, there's none of this like very careful cutting, dry cutting, or liquid tapering. And actually that being really, really necessary for a lot of people. Doctors they look at me like I'm an alien, like I'm completely insane when I tell them that I use scales and I weigh my medication, and they try and give me that, do you know what you're doing? That doesn't sound very safe. That doesn't sound very accurate. And I'm like, this is going to save my life. Your way is it could kill me. It could kill me. Okay. So yeah, I say years, but obviously we're all different. But definitely, if you've been on that medication for a long time, and even a short time, and that's why I say, let's say you've been taking it for 3 months, you just don't know. Just start with that 10% cut initially and just see how you go. Okay. When you come off, you can experience the same symptoms you went in for initially, like depression, anxiety. However, you can experience them to 10 times worse, so they can be exaggerated, as well as many other scary feelings and symptoms. So I've already been through that one. For some, it's very important to stay on the same brand of medication. For some, people can be brand sensitive. I am brand sensitive. Some people can't take to water tapering. Sometimes that means you have to change your brand or go to a liquid compound, and that can be quite expensive as well. But if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. But sometimes that can mean changing brand, and actually that can be really, really just discombobulating for the brain. And that's why I decided to dry cut my quetiapine and my mirtazapine, because I just knew. And I actually accidentally changed the brand of my mirtazapine once, and I got feelings of derealization, all sorts of strange things going on. And it's just, you just want to sort of get that away when you're tapering. Like, you just want to remove any possible destabilization. I know that can be hard, because pharmacies can say to you that, some pharmacies admit that people are brand sensitive, but a lot of them will just tell you that there's no difference in the medication. Whereas I have experienced differences in different brands. I do come from a very harmed place. Some people are absolutely fine. But again, when you're tapering, it's such a delicate thing to do. It's so important just to keep everything risk-free. Okay. Well, this one. They can make your initial issue much worse. So again, this kind of goes into the side effects, the adverse things that can happen. You could go in for anxiety and depression and then be way worse from the antidepressant and wish that you could go back to that anxiety and depression that you had. So it's something that doctors don't tell you, is that, as much as they want it to be a quick fix for your anxiety or depression, or they think that it is, or it's going to help you. And a lot of them said to me, like, I was taking citalopram, been 4 weeks, I was feeling absolutely horrendous. I was so confused. I thought I was going mad. I felt like I'd left my body. And they were like, just wait a bit longer. Once you get to the 6-week mark, 7-week mark, it will settle. It's, like they say, like, you have to go through this period of feeling way worse and then you get way better. And it's like, I don't know. That to me feels like not a great thing to be taking. I know that people can settle and they can do that wave of like, oh my God, feeling so much worse and then feeling better. But I also, question what that's really doing to our systems. And some people take the medication and they just feel horrendous and they get like symptoms and side effects. And it's really not for them. So that just needs to be explained. You know, this whole thing of like, just wait 6 or 7 weeks and it will pass. Actually, for some people that it doesn't pass and it just makes them feel awful. What things doctors don't tell you when they hand out a psych med? They can cause numbing of any sexual sensation. I spoke to somebody recently at a picnic I went to called Antidepressants Risks. This lovely lady, Katinka, who did the Daily Mail article I was in, she runs this. And I went to that in London and I met lots of people there that had gone through this. And a lot of people spoke to me. I was chatting, and a lot of what came up was people experiencing sexual dysfunction. So just no feeling down there. And no pleasure, not being able to have pleasure. I mean, that's huge. And again, this just isn't said, or it's there, it's there online, but they just don't take it seriously. And I just don't understand. It's like, guys, you can see the side effects. They're there. That's something that is labeled that can happen. Why don't you tell me that when I'm in the doctor's office? Why don't you tell me? They can cause, psych meds can cause akathisia, an external feeling, an internal feeling, and eternal, it feels like it's never going to end, feeling of needing to move, combined with very fast, dark, suicidal thoughts. So this is something, it's a horrendous symptom. You can Google it. You can actually Google it. I Google a lot of things now because we have to do our own research. In this, it's something that you'll say to a doctor and they sort of look at you a bit funny, like, what? Some people know what it is. I mean, they really should know what it is. It's something that it's very there. It's very, 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 it's a reality and it's a stark one. And these medications can cause that, and it can lead to somebody not being here anymore because they can't take being in that place. I had it for a very long time. It went from mild agitation to to pacing, running back and forth. I just had this feeling where I was just completely wanted to rip myself out of my body. Horrendous. Doctors don't tell you that this medication could 100% cause this. Okay. Doctors don't tell you that you can get an adverse reaction straight away. So this is something that can happen. And I speak to a lot of people who will take it and it will completely throw them, like people call it a paradoxal reaction. That can happen. And then they end up in a form of withdrawal just from taking the medication like once. So this is also something that isn't said. And when it happens, people are treated like they're completely insane. Like that just cannot happen. But it can. And I speak to a lot of people that go through that. And I just wish that there was some sort of testing before giving someone a medication, test their metabolic rate, the DNA. I'm not a scientist, but test something in their body to be able to see if this person's going to be able to take this medication and not get an adverse reaction. Because we're all so different. We're different. Okay, last one. We're at 30 minutes. Okay, something doctors don't tell you when they give out an antidepressant, antipsychotic, or benzodiazepine, psych med, if you taper too fast, you can end up in withdrawal and be harmed, leading to months or years of healing. So this is a really important one, obviously goes into the other stuff that I've said, but they don't recognize the importance, the huge importance in a slow taper. Again, we're so different. So like some people can taper, and you don't want a taper to go on for longer than it needs to, because it's painful, it's painstaking, and the whole getting the same brand thing and just going through the whole thing. But if you're harmed and you know that you react to the medication, it's just also, just like I say, even if you're not harmed and you've been fine on the medication, you've not had any problems, just try starting small first and just see how your body reacts to the taper. Because it's like people will do like a big cut because the doctor will say, oh, just do that massive cut. And then they get this wave of withdrawal. And it's such a jar to the system that it often can take people a long time to get over that like initial kind of in the system. So it's just, I wish doctors would just say, you know, we don't know, everyone's different, but I think it's safe for you to start on a 10% cut, see how you feel, wait for a month, see when it might affect you. You know, the timeline of a cut for every medication or every person is different. Okay, I'm feeling these symptoms, but they've passed. I'm going to now taper again. Because that's the thing they don't tell you, is you've really got to do it by the body. You taper. For example, quetiapine. I taper quetiapine, and 2 weeks on the dot, I would feel the symptoms of the taper at the 2-week mark. No one told me that. They did say that it had a 2-week long half-life, which I was like, okay. But no one said when you go to taper that, or you're going to expect to feel something when you taper 2 weeks out. No one. They just tell you to taper big chunks off. Just keep going. You know, every 2 weeks, another one, every 2 weeks, another one, every 2 weeks, or every 1 week, another one. You know, every doctor's got their different protocol. But what can happen with that, if you're not waiting to see how that cut feels, and if the taper has affected you, and if you're not waiting, if it has affected you, waiting for those things to pass, which they will eventually, but we never know when. We've got to wait sometimes. You know, some people have to wait a few weeks. Could be 1 week and the symptoms go. Could be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I remember waiting 2 months for symptoms to leave me after a 5% cut on my quetiapine. But I assure you, this got better with time. The more and more I healed from the initial harm that I was experiencing, I experienced that it got easier. Now, I know that's not the same for everyone, but I'm just saying that is a possibility. It is a possibility, one that I thought was not possible when I was going through it, when I did that 5% cut and I had to wait 2 months for that to pass, for me to feel like, okay, my baseline feels good, I'm ready for the next cut. So doctors don't tell you that you need to do that. And as you can imagine, if you are somebody that will get affected and they don't know, you know, I don't know if you are or if you're not, but if you are, then imagine just all those big chunks off in a very quick succession. Literally, it's like a domino effect. So yeah, that's how I've had to taper. And with this mirtazapine, for example, today, I'm feeling, it's the 10th day from my taper, I'm feeling a bit weird, some weird shit going on in my system. I'm going to wait for these to pass. I mean, I always wait like 4 weeks, really, with this particular drug, because I'm worried about my sleep and all of that kind of thing. But lastly, I'll finish on this, is when I did get to a good place with the quetiapine, where I felt like each time I cut, I got to the 2-week mark, and I was like, do you know what? I'm not feeling anything. Like, I'm not being affected by this taper at the moment. Obviously I am, but I don't feel symptoms. So then I started to cut actually every like 2.5 weeks. So I'd be like, okay, I feel like I can taper again. And it kind of quickened my taper up. And then I would wait. So I'd do a few of those and then I'd wait for a bit and be like, okay, like I didn't want the build up. But if you are reacting well, like I say, it's a body-led taper, and you've just got to be so aware and like of all of these things that we're not told. It's just, it's a delicate process. It's like you don't want the build up. So if you are doing well or you're doing better and your taper's going, you're like, oh, actually, I don't feel like I'm affected. It can get very, very easy to be like, I'm going to take a bigger and bigger and bigger bit off. And, and then you end up with this crash. You just don't want the crash. Especially if you're like me and you've come from a harmed place. We can't see the harm. Like at the moment, I'm obviously way better than I was, and I'm functioning and things like this. It's been 4 years into this whole thing, and I can feel the taper today. And so it's like, we need to really remember that if we've got the history, there's no such thing as too careful. So I have to remind myself of this as well, because I just want to get off the medication. I want to get off it. But I also don't want a build up, and I don't all of a sudden want insomnia and be like, shit, Okay, that's it from me today, but I just thought I'd do those because I thought it might be useful for people out there and for people who are in complete bewilderment that this even happens, and that doctors just flat out will say that this doesn't happen. And again, disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. This isn't medical advice. This is just something that I've seen and experienced through my experience of going through this and almost dying because I was given all the wrong advice over and over and over again. And I honestly see it as a miracle that I'm here. So in a kind of spiritual way, I feel like it's almost like a responsibility of the universe to say this. You know what I mean? Okay, big love.